really exciting panel here today. I'll just introduce them briefly and then we're going to watch a short video before they present their reflections. So I'll start with Ron Patterson. Many of you will remember him in his role as Health and Disability Commissioner, which he's now retired from, but he's also a Professor of Law and has a long interest in patient safety and healthcare. So he's going to chair our session. David Clark, again, many of you will know David. Do you want to just stand up? You two stand up.
So I'm David and this is... Well, not that point.
They're very difficult to control. You can sit down again. So David Clark, I first met in 2000 when he was our CEO, but he had actually been our Chief Financial Officer and our coup prior to that. And he has the enviable quality of remembering everybody's names, which is not something I possess at all. So he's going to talk about being a patient here, not being the CEO here. Next we've got Renee Greaves. Sorry, you've changed your name, it catches me out. Renee has also been a patient here, had quite a long inpatient stay, and it's going to reflect both on the inpatient and outpatient ambulatory care. And finally, Robin Youngston, who many of you will have met through this week, but, you know, sorry, Renee, do you want to stand up? And Robin trained initially as an engineer and then an anaesthetist, and he's been working, he was on the founding member of the initial Quality Improvement Committee and has worked with the WHO on patient safety issues. And latterly he's been really looking at how we can provide compassionate care of the whole person. So he's going to give a short reflection. So those are the introductions. At the moment we'll just have this short video which outlines our program. It's approximately 6 minutes long. Then I'll hand over to Ron. Is that all right? Yeah.
The Patient and Whānau-centred Care program is part of our triple aim in the organisation. Now, the triple aim is about improving the patient's experience, it's about looking at the costs and affordability, and it's also about our population needs. So you can see that the impact of this developing our patient and whānau-centred care strikes right at the heart of our triple aim. In this organisation we've used patient stories to help improve quality. So we've taken the learnings from patient stories and developed projects, working groups. One of the benefits coming forward now will be hearing positive patient stories.
Most of the patients that I've talked to about having their whānau around, they've been very appreciative. They've felt more settled, and as I say, often it's in that first few hours, the first day, where it's an unfamiliar setting, they're not sure what's happening, they're a little bit scared, that comes through and that they're most in need of support.
On balance, we find that open visiting to be, and with families staying, really positive, but we do have strict guidelines and expectations which we set out at the beginning. We work in partnership with the family and we develop a good rapport with them. So we keep that communication going through all the time, and we actively work out looking at where there are any barriers to discharge and things like that. So we can actually reduce our length of stay by having family involvement at the beginning. The family participate in cares, and the nurses, it gives them an opportunity to teach them cares, particularly if they're going home and these carers are going to be the main caregivers at home. So we got that opportunity to teach them. It's not compulsory, they don't have to participate in the care, and a lot of them choose not to, but there are many that do. As a result, we have less complaints because the family are actively involved in all aspects of the patient's care and decision making.
Evidence shows that organisations that invest in developing and working with patients and families have a major return on their investment.
We needed to identify a way in which improved the way face-to-face experiences occurred for Māori patients initially, and it was around the first contact that was our starting point. But we realised that as we got into this a bit more, that by developing a tool that standardised the 6 principles of engagement, that all people would benefit from it, not just Māori patients. Because partnership is what we're going to be achieving. Partnership is what we're going to be achieving, but we're protecting the human rights, we're honouring and respecting it, we're increasing participation, and with increased participation, that's the model of partnership that we're actually seeking. Well, AIDIT itself is a communication tool that standardises 6 principles of engagement: acknowledgement, introduction, identification, duration, explanation, and thank you. We've actually trained around 3,500 staff since we've started. What difference it makes is that patients are now saying they know who is talking to them. Well, I hope that's what they're saying, because that's exactly, some of the data show that they know who they're talking to, they know why they're there, and they know who, they actually just feel more part of what's happening.
Some areas need to be convinced of the benefits. Some areas have taken this on as part of normal practice, and so they can see the benefits, they just want some help.
The main concerns raised were that we would be inundated with visitors, that ward rounds and the primary activities that sort of happen in the morning would be interrupted by family and whānau. Also the concern that they would all want to stay overnight. The reality is that yes, we have more visitors now in the morning, but those visitors tend to be with their family. So the patient and their family are together, they don't tend to crowd the wards. And overnight, there are very few people that have actually chosen to stay. When they want to, they're allowed to, but the concerns of staff with regards to overcrowding and the increased work of having family there just really haven't happened.
In order for this program to be successful, we have to have everyone on board. That's not just our patients and families, but that's staff. This program makes so much sense. We need your help, and I would encourage you all to partake in this really exciting part of history for counties.
It's great to be back here, and I salute Counties Manukau on this fantastic program. That was a really neat DVD from Denise and the staff, and what you were doing here is actually a beacon of light for the whole country, for our whole health system. So I really commend you on that. That first slide there is actually just picking up Denise's point about hearing from patients and families and their stories. And at HDC, where as Commissioner I spent 10 years sometimes hearing about all the things that went wrong, the Advocacy Service went out and advertised in local newspapers for all the things that go right. And of course, patients have so much to say about the great care that gets delivered day in, day out, but also they're very good at telling us, you know, what were the elements of that, so we can come back to that. I just want to mention very briefly my special friend Andrew Pollen. It's a year today since Andrew died of melanoma, and I left here a year and 1 week ago from a Harry Ray's Grand Run to go to Mercy Hospice Auckland, where Andrew had just been admitted. And he had some very difficult acute admissions to some of our public hospitals. And to see the different way, the way in which hospice gets that so right, it's a whole philosophy about the way the family is included in everything, and yet they still do that in a way that Andrew, even as he was starting to float out of consciousness, he was still the first point that the staff would check in with Andrew when they came into the room. So I remember my mate today. And I remember also all the inquiries that I had to undertake. This was the jokes in the top right. This is from Wairau DHB. Things have improved there too in the last few years. But of course, you can get a very jaundiced view as a commissioner hearing about the problems. And we know, and one of the reasons why we've seen this movement in this country about compassion, about caring, is a sense that we've got to have another think about how we're delivering care, because in our complex health system, something's been lost. And I think this has touched a chord with staff, and it's certainly touching a chord with the community, with patients, and with families. And just finally, I put up the famous painting by Sir Luke Fildes of the Doctor, 1891, hangs in the Tate Gallery. And of course, on the one hand, we see the patient at the centre, but notice how we see really the doctor in the centre, and the family, the parents, are barely visible in the background. I think part of what this week and this program is about bringing the patients and whānau into the foreground. So that's my little intro. It's now my great pleasure to hear our first patient story, your former CEO, David Clark.
Do I have to use this? Hands up who can't hear me. That's all right. Well, look, it's fantastic to be back, and I thank you very much for the privilege of being so. And I'll be.
We can't hear you, Dave.
I'm very, very quick. How do you use it?
You just hold it up. Just like the booth.
See, nothing's changed. I had a reasonably average sort of accident. I don't want to over-dramatise it. Happened in October, and it was very interesting because for me personally, the outcome has been fantastic. So overall, if I look at the long-term thing, it's been fantastic. I'm fine. Actually, there are people that think I've got a neurological deficit from it, but I don't get my wife, but never mind. But no, I was very privileged. I think, and I'm going to go through some aspects of it now, but I think the thing that struck me, to be quite frank, was a superb service when you're acutely unwell. I say acutely unwell because we'll talk about the subacute bit later in a minute. But I was very impressed of the people's compassion and grace. In fact, the other part that keeps sort of hanging around my memory about the whole process, which was only 5 days as an inpatient, 3 months as an outpatient, is the empathetic graciousness of almost every single staff member. And it reverts back to something that we used to talk about sort of 10 years ago, is had great people but not such a great system. And I want to talk a bit about the system stuff. So overall, for me personally, it was a fantastic episode, and I was extremely grateful for all the very hard-working people. So when I got picked off of the road, not far from where Ron lives, the St John's ladies had great delight in telling me with a bit of sort of laughter that I had broken my collarbone and broken my hip. And that's okay, it's not too bad. I'll come right a bit of morphine and fix that away we go. So then we go to ED. I can't remember all of it. But the interesting thing was, and there's 3 things I want to bring out here. One is seniority of expertise. One is continuity of care. Okay. And the other one is medication risk. Okay. Just because I know Mary's here, I've got to talk about that. So I got in there and I had an X-ray, a plain film X-ray, and the health surgeon, looking at me, really told me I had nothing broken. Now what happened was that the ambulance nurses came back every 4 or 5 minutes and every half hour to find out what was wrong and place bets on when they were going to actually bloody work it out. And that is absolutely true. They were delighted after another X-ray, CT scan, and finally the orthopaedic registrar. And in between here, there's quite a few clinicians. They finally diagnosed what those wonderful ladies who put me off the road got right in the first 3 minutes. And it's very interesting. Experience tells people a lot. I'm not being degrading of the training process, but what it does hit home to me is that there is a lot of worth, a lot of weight given to an experienced clinical person in their field of expertise, specialisation. Is that okay? Up to the ward we go, and I didn't know I was MRSA positive, but I am, and I'm pretty glad about that because I got my own room. The worst part about my own room, I wrote to Grant about this, there was no Sky TV, so but treatment was given, etc., etc. And the interesting, I was in for 5 days, which is about 15 shifts, and as I said before, I couldn't fault the caring and empathetic experience, if you like. I was in a plastic ward, actually, it was quite interesting. I did get found by the orthopedic surgeons, and it wasn't hard, and they came back. But the one thing I thought was quite very interesting was the fact that out of the 15 shifts, I had the same nurse 3 times. And so that caused 2 problems. In fact, I went down the ward when I could walk on a wheelchair, and I asked the nurse, who was one of my nurses there, "You're in the same ward, how come you don't get the same patients? You know, I thought that would be quite reasonable. And she didn't know. And if she didn't know, I didn't know. Now that's interesting for two reasons. One, I soon learned to memorise my drug therapy because I would have to, well I didn't, my wife explained it to the first 3 nurses and I sort of worked out this is a good thing because I've got to get the wrong drugs from time to time. So I memorised my drug therapy. It wasn't very big, it wasn't very hard. Because every single nurse changed a new nurse, and even the one that came on sort of at the end of the day was the one at the first of the day, got it wrong, or struggled, or wasn't quite sure. So you'd have to think that there is something in this continuity care thing. Okay? The other one is I had a bad reaction to tramadol, which apparently happens, and I was sort of working out whether this in fact got in my notes, the drug chart. So I went and sort of asked for the drug, I went and got the drug chart. And I tried to read it, I couldn't read it. No, I'm not as bright as, I only got 1 engineering degree and he's got 1 medical degree. But I did struggle to understand it, it's not written for me. But tramadol reaction thereof was not in there. So I got that through. It was okay. The other thing that was interesting was that, two things very quickly, and I'll sit down, is it is easy to get lost in a large tertiary acute hospital. I was wheeled down to X-rays from time to time, and once I was lost. No one saw me for 2 hours. I just sat there. I got a cup of tea, but it's very interesting, isn't it? I wasn't worried because I knew where I was, and I could bring myself back and all that sort of stuff. I think. But it is interesting that how, as you say, the complex institutions, these are big campuses, these are big areas, right? At the super clinic, it's pretty hard to get lost. Could be, I could manage it, but not many other people could. But I imagine if you were unfamiliar with the Larder Middlemore, which is one of the best hospitals in Australasia, as I understand it, then once you get lost, and what do you bloody do? Because I never myself running. But anyway, it was quite interesting because when we were doing the X-ray thingy from time to time, I called this for a hurry up and wait. Because it was all urgent, I had to get down there real quick. I got down there real quick, nothing happened. But still, at the end of the day, X-rays were taken and life went on. The final thing very quickly is the medication, right? And my mother comes in here, as some poor physicians know from time to time, with Regulus monotony. And it's very interesting how you do need to take, I believe, personally I tell people, when you get into hospital, these people are so busy, they have so much demand on their time. Take a bit of personal responsibility. Now I may be an outlier here, and I have a sort of slightly different view from other people about is the customer always right? I think not, but there's another discussion. But I do think, I certainly encourage you, whether I relate to, take a bit of notice about your care, take a bit of responsibility. I mean, try and work out what you should have when, because it's in your best interest to do so, because people, they are fallible. No, there's no, it's not a definition that if you give care, you've got to be totally perfect, never make errors. Everybody has human issues that they deal with, besides what they come in with. You know, they've had a terrible bad, you know, who knows what's happened in the wider spectrum. The second issue I had is, the food was great, everything was great, but you know, I couldn't follow it, I wouldn't want to anyway. I heard quite a lot of people complaining about not getting their cup of tea. It's very interesting because I also think, this is my last thing I'm going to say, is that I personally think you've got to show respect to the clinicians that are treating you if you want respect back. And I know I'm a slight outlier then, but you know, if you want to be rude, abrupt, uncooperative, then what, you know, maybe you are raising the probability that someone has a normal human reaction back to you. If you want to be treated with respect and trust, and we used to do this all the time when we used to negotiate with the union, which is if you want someone to trust you, you better trust them first, because it doesn't work the other way around. So that's something that we try to do, and I try to talk my mother to do that, which is probably anyway. But overall, very grateful, and to everyone that did have to put up with me, thank you very much. And so far,
Thanks, David. And I'd now like to pass over to Renee for her patient story.
Right, now you'll have to bear with me everyone, I'm not a public speaker and my journey is quite a bit longer than theirs. So during this, I'd like to explain how the initiatives of the Patient and Whānau Centred Care Program can be implemented, which would greatly improve the experience for our patients in whānau. I myself have been a patient here on a number of occasions. Today, I wish to share my journey. There are 5 areas of the Patient and Whānau Centred Program that focus on. I will comment on each of these as they relate to my experience. My journey began back in 2011 on the evening of April 30th. Having fun at my partner's 30th, little did I know my Crohn's disease was like a volcano, ready to erupt. I became sick over the evening to the point where I found myself on my bedroom floor early the next morning. This is after many hours of silently suffering. At this point, I yelled for help and the ambo was called. From here on, everything becomes vague. One of the best days of my life turned into the worst. My man had proposed that evening, getting the for better or worse the very next day. On reaching the ED, I've now pretty much lost awareness of my surroundings. Prior to surgery, I was stabilised and prepped in the ICU. During surgery, it became evident I had a perforated bowel, sepsis and toxic shock in all of my 4 quadrants of my belly. After surgery, I was in ICU. This is where my fiancé and family were advised of the full extent of my surgery and just how critical I was. Obviously, I wasn't conscious, so I have no idea that I'm hanging on for dear life, have an ileostomy or a full incision down my stomach full of staples. Over the next few days, I have ups and downs, still on a ventilator, unable to talk. Barely conscious, so still really unaware of what's happening, what has happened, or even where I am. During this critical stage of my care, my fiancé and partners were my sole decision makers outside the hospital staff. Hence, I strongly believe in the family and whānau as partners in care philosophy that Counties Manukau is currently in the process of implementing. My family were advised of key decisions that had to be made on my behalf, what could happen, and explained the realities of possible outcomes for the first few days, including death. This involvement and communication in the initial phase was critical to my family's well-being and engagement with the hospital. They also tried to anticipate the needs of carers, helping prepare for what they knew would be a long haul. 2 program themes, improving face-to-face engagement and keeping me and my family informed, were clearly in action, and the staff did this well. Given this important discussion at such an early age, when I can't speak for myself, was handled so well, it has since given me an insight into what could be done much more effectively across the other sectors. The PWCC program reinforces the need for engagement and involvement with the whānau and key carers. Intensive care a few days later, I was given a whiteboard to write on. Well, that's what I thought. Photos later shown to me reveal nothing of the sort, more like the drawings of a preschooler, rather than the conversation I had written. This highlights just how different the experience is for the patient and the whānau. If you were to ask my family and friends, they all have different accounts. Also, due to the nature of events, I have no memory of anything other than drug-induced nightmares for the first 7 to 10 days. A week they will never forget, but one I will never remember. HDU. Having a nurse at your bedside 24/7 is a comforting factor. My care was impeccable. They would wash my hair and help me start to understand the past 10 days. I now have to begin my recovery. Learn to accept my ileostomy, squeak, and the fact that because of this new feature and my survival tattoo, I was alive. Yet I was yet to discover that I'd lost all fitness and stamina. My body had been in survival mode and even the reserve tank was empty. I began to realise just how reliant I was on my team to do absolutely anything. One of the toughest times was having my wound break down and the decision to remove all staples. This procedure happened late at night with none of my family present. Being able to find them immediately after was a major help in dealing with this development. But if they'd been there for me overnight, it would have been better. That's why I'm so supportive of the change in your visiting hours. Still in the drug-induced days, I get a glimpse of my injuries and ileostomy. What an eye-opener, seeing your insides. Week 2 into my stay, and I'm now only beginning to understand why I'm here. My intro to the ward was a nightmare. I'm now in a room, I don't know where I am. I'm alone, my roommate has the curtain closed, so all I can see is the wall in front of me. I was introduced to my nurse, rehooked to all my 8 gadgets, and advised where the bell for help was. 5 minutes in, I'd lost it in the sheet. Still heavily medicated, I was lost, frightened and alone. I'd gone from a nurse at my bedside to one at the end of a bell that I could not find. That was one of the longest, scariest nights ever. In the morning, things came to light more. I was assigned a senior nurse and she began to explain how the ward worked, where I was and how they would help. This face-to-face engagement and keeping me informed of what happened and what lay ahead was important to help me cope. During my stay on the ward, all info was directed my way. However, I was still on another planet, unable to process or remember any info. Had this been directed at my family and carers as well, then we would have all had this true story. Also, being able to hear handover just outside your door was unnerving. You could hear things you didn't always understand or need to know, but it makes you feel like it's happening to you and not with you. I think the partnership between patients and their family and whānau as care partners and the clinical teams is so important. So please talk to your patients and partners in care at the bedside. Over the next weeks, I was still in a delicate way, barely able to walk or do anything for myself. The positive attitude and human touch that all the health professionals showed me was so critical. They would help me to see the small miracles. I would still endure some really low times and setbacks when I wished things were different. At no time was it the fault of my medical teams that I was in this predicament. But still, I found things frustrating. Unsure, who was in charge? Who do I trust? I really battled to understand how everybody fit in. If you include the PAR teams, pain management, infectious diseases, physio, psych, registrars, on-call, HCAs, I'm overwhelmed. For me, it became a case of who do I perceive as looking after my best interests? Who do I relate to and who is seeing me as a person? I know that some areas in the hospital already lead the way from a patient-centred care perspective, and I'm positive the Patient and Whānau Centred program will see this great work rolled out across the DHB. I quickly worked out a way to get visitors, is to give the nurses a symptom for a AAA. Your room is rapidly filled with about 20 people. This was a time when staff were brilliant at communicating, which made the process bearable. If only this communication happened for all patients all the time and not just when there was a AAA. Not long after this, we were informed by the ward staff that I was to be discharged. False alarm. It is now that we realise the PAR team had been monitoring me too, as they advised us there was no way I was going anywhere for at least another few weeks. So sometimes the communication broke down between the various teams involved in my care. One would give one message, the other would be completely different. This worried me because I wondered if they knew what they were doing. Now 16 days into my adventure, I'm introduced to an ex-patient. She is my age, gender and living with a permanent ileostomy. She helped me see everything was okay, some adjustments and things could slowly go back to normal. This made me feel that people were caring about my full well-being, realising the emotional toll that this was all taking. I'm so supportive of the patient and family advisors who work in partnership with the clinical team, the patient and the partners in care. I'm pleased that this organisation is considering having more of these in the future. We just need more. Now 3 weeks into my stay, I was given a PICC line. Well, oh, if only I had one much earlier. My arms are now black and blue. Nurses, doctors can't get bloods or lower changes done. My veins have shut down. I'm now up to 5 lower changes a day as the strong meds were killing the veins after each round. This extra pain and suffering could have been avoided with more communication across the teams. Now showing signs of depression, my family were advised to take me out of the hospital grounds. Fortunately, we flew to wheelchair. This trip was great but frightening. During the lead up to the next surgery, there were multiple complications. thus leading to many setbacks and again a reality check of my condition. Balancing the need for the wound to be closed versus disturbing the delicate damaged tissue. I have absolute admiration for the number of things you have to balance. It is a bit of a juggling act. A key time when the PWCC initiative was really evident was on the morning of my second surgery, in which they would sew me back together again. Well, given last time I was on the table, I was on the edge of dying, petrified. I wanted to live. I had so much to live for. The nursing staff allowed me 2 key people to be at my bedside that morning whilst I waited for surgery. This time was invaluable as it gave me a sense of security and freed up the nursing staff to help others. My surgeon had advised an epidural for post-surgery, which I agreed to. He reminded me I had no recall of the first surgery. Well, what a relief. Man, I was in for a shock. I soon learned for real what it's like to have no abs and an incision right down my belly. It became apparent that we need abs for everything. From breathing, coughing, to sitting up. And please, don't tell me a joke, because laughing, that was the worst but best medicine of all. Humour became my coping mechanism. Hence, I aptly named my scar my survival tattoo and the ileostomy squeak. In the words of Forrest Gump, shit happens. Especially after an explosion of squeak. I cried and Mum laughed. Due to the length of my stay, I'm now getting to know all the nurses. Due to shifts, etc., I was cared for by most at some point. Social chit-chat between us during our daily routines of checkups and scans was a welcome distraction and broke barriers. The day after surgery, I was helped to walk to the doorway with the assistance of a physio and a walking frame. Since when did I go from 29 to 79 years old? Now the fun task of dressing changes. Not a welcome part of the day, usually after a shower. So your bandages were now wet and half off, and you were cold. Waiting some days for the doctor to check progress before being able to have it redressed. Hence, I'm now chained to my bed, unable to go anywhere. Communication between the ward team and the doctors would have helped in this situation. Small considerations can have a huge bearing on your mood. Given this all happened by about 10 AM. One day I sat for 2 hours waiting and needed the bathroom again. But how? I realised that the hospital's prime objective is patient physical well-being, but it's the emotional well-being that enables you to cope with the full journey. Wearing your own PJs down the hallway. To me, it meant colour and my personality re-emerging. To nurses, it meant a milestone, as this requires less IV and support to do so. Also, reaching your own feet in the shower. After 3 weeks means freedom, a shower in peace and no spectators. I'm no longer so vulnerable either. The staff helped me see these minor things were actually achievements. Now, to escape the ward as I so desired. I have definite cabin fever. I need wheels, still too broken to escape unaided. But where is the wheelchair again? Ordered via the nurses' station, no go. Each visitor was sent on a search. So still, 5 days later, I'm losing the plot and no wheelchair. By this point, everyone is on the lookout. Until finally, Saturday night, a student nurse comes to my rescue. He nags an orderly, wheeling one through the ward and hijacks it. So the highlight is now 29 years old, PJs and wheelchair, but free to go where? Fresh air at the main entrance with my own security nurse is my option. Adventure was great relief, but destination somewhat lacking. The need for a wheelchair remained an issue, as I'd be allowed to escape between IVs, but with a window of 2.5 hours daily, it was not always achievable. I was ready to go and no means to do so. In the end, we bought our own wheelchair. Lucky for me, we had the means, as the constant disappointment was depressing. Week 7. Now after a trial run being home for the weekend, I'm finally discharged into the care of my family with the understanding more surgeries to follow. 3 days at home, readmission. Blood test issue. This readmission could have been avoided either with discharge papers more detailed or the GP more informed. Well, as luck would have it, a week later, on the way to an outpatient clinic, an elderly lady decided T-boning our car was a good idea. Must I add, she hit my side too. So needless to say, hi, I'm back again, but this time to a different ward. Well, what can I say? I definitely don't hear, hi, I'm your nurse. Not for at least an hour. By now you can imagine I have a fair idea of how things should go. Like intro. Also, please hook me up to my IVs. These might be helpful, but we've forgotten. The Patient and Whānau Centre program is focused on face-to-face engagement, and AIDIT is one of the tools I know staff have subsequently been trained in. I'm currently awaiting a scan, which I've had multiple so far, so I'm not scared of the test. My concern is what damage have I done internally to my latest surgery. All I wanted was my family to stay, however told on no uncertain terms could they. What a joke. This new ward was worlds apart from what my previous ward was like, yet it was only walls away. It was such a positive ward, all I wanted to do was go back there. Finally, third time lucky, home again. Now the stoma nurse visits and checks things over. Still trying to get things right with supplies, due to still healing. My individual needs for ileostomy supplies was paramount to my fragile self-esteem, and the insecurity of ill-fitting bags was not helpful. The next few months are purely recovery and minimal exercise and prep for the next surgery, to remove more diseased bowel. The next surgery was number 3. Big difference. I'm not at Middlemore. I'm having this surgery at MSC. MSC was good on the fact there was no ED process for admission. I had the same surgeon throughout my journey, so in that respect I had continuity of care. Some small things facility-wise were noticeable though. The building appeared closed after weekends and late nights due to the lighting only being left on in the wards. Gave you the feeling like you were cast aside. My surgeon was able to remove the diseased bowel and reconnect things. So goodbye sweet. What a welcome gift and no further surgery. I can now start the process of recovery again and gain the life back I'd put on hold. It was not till my first anniversary and seeing a hospital psychologist in an ICU visit that I realised that my expectations for recovery were still too ambitious. These visits were not instigated by the hospital, but by me seeking closure to this journey. They were invaluable. I owe my life to this organisation, so thank you. You are one big team. Well, after some great opportunities, I've now become a voluntary member of the Patient and Whānau Centre Care Program and wish to help patients in Whānau get the brilliant care that I receive 99% of the time. I have a passion for helping this organisation make this a more positive experience for people, even though they may be visiting us under what can be very trying and emotional times without a patient or key carer.
Thank you, Renee. And now, Robert, some reflections.
Kia ora katoa, ngā mihi mana kia katoa, warm greetings to you all. They say on the stage you should never share it with children or animals. I have to tell you there was a doctor sharing the stage with patients telling their stories is equally hazardous. Meredith and I know this is our third day in the organisation, working with you to explore some aspects of compassionate caring. One of the things we want to say is that we're in no way here to come to teach you how to do compassionate caring, because this is something that's deeply embedded within the organisation. But this is the nature of the healthcare system that we're in. Like Dave talked about, that in 15 shifts he only met the same nurse 3 times. That when you're seriously ill, critically ill, you can feel so frightened and bewildered, and your care is so complex and involves so many hundreds of different staff. how do we all work together to ensure that all the needs of patients are met. And so what we've been doing is running some workshops with staff and asking staff to tell stories of extraordinary connection with patients, and those times when there was such a heartfelt connection and compassion and caring, and to teach a process that you can use with your own staff and students to draw out these stories and to learn and to uncover the knowledge that's already in the organisation about how you can respond to some of the needs that Dave and Renee have mentioned. My wife Meredith's here, and we have been through some experiences ourselves. Our 18-year-old daughter crashed a car and had an unstable C-spine fracture and was in spinal traction for 3 months on an orthopaedic ward, and subsequently has been in hospital for other reasons with another life-threatening illness. And so when you write so eloquently and beautifully, and you're a powerful writer, of your experience of arriving on a ward in a strange place, feeling so lost and so frightened and so bewildered and all alone, and the family not there, and your loved ones not there, and the one link you have to some safety, which is the call bell, somehow Canterbury is out of reach. That is a feeling of profound vulnerability. And I want you to listen to what she said, the little hint she said about, what is profoundly important about that. It's about the human touch. It's about paying attention to all the little details of care, making sure that the call bell is in reach, that there actually is a wheelchair that you can use, that people introduce themselves. And what we've heard in the workshops we've been doing with the staff here, and many of you in the room have been at some of those, is just wonderful stories of making that human connection, of touching patients in a way that's not just about percussing the chest or measuring a blood pressure or feeling a pulse, but non-clinical touch, that the comfort and caring that can be shown with holding the hand, a touch on the arm, a rub of the back, just sitting down someone, perhaps in silence, just being present for someone. And from my experience, and I'm sure from yours, that these are the things that make you feel valued, comforted, feel safer. There's other stories we heard about your staff choosing very deliberate practices of small acts of kindness. Dave talked about being taken down to X-ray someone being lost for 2 hours. So when you're walking the hospital corridors and you see someone looking a bit lost, to stop, to say hello, to ask, can I help? And then someone says, I'm trying to get to this department or this ward. Not to give them directions, but to take them by the arm and take them for a walk and find the place they need to be and ask them their name, a little bit about them. And it's all those little bits of human touch and caring that make just a tremendous difference. Renee, she describes so vividly some of the things that happen that really make patients feel invisible. The handover outside the door when I don't know how many doctors and nurses are talking about Renee as if she's not actually there at all. And this sometimes occurs on the ward round, talking across the bed as if the patient there is the patient thinking, hang on a sec, am I supposed to be part of this? Are they actually talking about me? Is this my body? Am I supposed to make a comment? Am I supposed to be part of this? And so it's having that sensitivity that all of the time it's so easy to objectify patients and talk about the gallbladder on Ward 6. Actually, there's a human being connected to that. And at all times, just to try and be sensitive to the fact that there is a very vulnerable, frightened human being here that is deserving of our care and attention, and involving the loved ones and the family in that at all times. And we can recall many experiences when our daughter Chloe was just so distressed and so afraid, and we were kind of locked out of the room because it was outside of visiting hours. And how we had another story this week of someone who was a staff member, had a mother in the hospital, but she had a swipe card so she could get in and kind of break the rules and be there, in the middle of the night or whatever. So this, I hope, we are just profoundly impressed. This is our 3rd day here in the organisation. We're profoundly impressed with this new strategy that's been launched. This is the first health board in the country that we are seeing, just giving such a high priority to centering care on the needs of patients and families and bringing deep love and compassion in support of that care. And the workshops we've been running have been attended by huge numbers of senior people, which is demonstrating to us the organisational leadership commitment to say this is a most important strategy. And from all the research that we've done and all the experience, we know that loving, compassionate care elicits in the patient healing responses that make a dramatic difference to clinical outcomes, make a dramatic difference to survival, make a dramatic difference to the immune system, make a dramatic difference to your chance of getting out of hospital. And it's an effect size that's many times more powerful than most of the medicines that we have. And it's just of crucial importance. So many warm congratulations to this organisation. Thank you so much. I can see many faces in the audience that have told us the most profound stories of their commitment and their passion and their love and their generosity and their courage in going the extra mile, breaking all the rules and doing what's right for a patient and family. So thank you so much. And Renee, we're blessed to hear your story. I hope that can be shared widely. You are a wonderful writer, and it's just such a vivid and moving account of what it's like to be a patient. Thank you.
So we're actually back on time now, and we've got 15 minutes for some Q&A. So I'd like to just throw it open to everyone in the audience, and speakers can react, and let's have a bit of choreography. Who'd like to kick it off?
I'll just say something else. I was just going to say something from a nursing point of view. A lot of stuff is focused on the nurses, but there are a lot of other people that go in to see these patients as well. And all different cultures, you guys are all white, and a lot of our patients are from different cultures, different backgrounds, and the behaviour for those people, of whether they talk to somebody in that particular way, is quite different, and often we need to explore some of those things a bit more than what we've been doing.
Good. David.
David Grayson, throat surgeon. Dave and Renee both touched on an aspect which is, I don't think we pick up on so often, where you're going from an episode of very high intensive care and to a step down sort of level, which when you're working in that situation, you're not perhaps so aware of, from the patient's point of view, where they're coming from. And also, certainly, I know it happens when you go from hospital back out to home, and I think it was great that you had that sort of trial period, because that's important. I was perhaps interested, maybe, Rob, if you could comment on that, because it is recognised in the literature, isn't it, as a situation itself.
Yes, that transition from very high intensity acute care to a lesser setting is often very troublesome. We had a member of our extended family, a young man who got a life-threatening head injury. He fell a number of metres onto concrete. He presented at the hospital with fixed dilated pupils and a GCS of 3, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning. It was a major neurosurgical unit, and was in the operating theatre within an hour, and had a huge blood clot evacuated, and there was acute brain damage. And he went to ICU to be ventilated. And as he began to emerge from coma, he was extremely agitated and disorientated, and he had lots of arterial line, central line drips and everything. And in the ICU, it was wonderful because they allowed family members, 2 family members, to be at the bedside just about 24 hours, and the whole family put together a roster to allow that to happen. And with the love of reassurance of familiar voices and touch, he did not need sedating. He just needed someone to hold his hand and talk to him and reassure him and gently stop him and pull all the lines out. And the only time we weren't there was the 2 hours of the ward round. When he was moved to a neurosurgical ward, it was early in an evening, and the family said, well, we just need to be with him. And they were told very strictly, no visiting time finishes at 8 o'clock in the evening, and you have to go. And it erupted into a huge row, and people got very upset and very tearful, and they were pushed out the door and locked out. The consequence was that our family member was tied down to the bed, that the arms and legs were tied down because they said, he's going to fall out of the bed and he's going to, pull his drips out. And he was just left all alone, absolutely terrified. So I think the role of seeing the family members as a resource to help you in care and to provide reassurance and support for someone, because these are the most, I think Renee would agree, some of the most frightening transitions from one-to-one care in a high-intensity place to another, to a ward. That's a real critical time where you feel very frightened, very alarmed, very disorientated, and the presence at that time of loving friends and family members is absolutely critical.
The trial periods I found really, really good. The wards would tell me, look, go out for the day. Well, they knew damn well I was going to be back in 2 hours. But I was naive and I thought I was going to be out all day, gallivanting around in the wheelchair, and we were going to be back 5 minutes before curfew. Well, within an hour I was frightened and back. But it also showed me how I needed to look after me and see where I was, because everyone else knew, but I still didn't. Being able to go home before I eventually went home, I had to learn to trust the people I loved to take care of me, because everybody here had taken care of me for so long. It also made me understand that what is a safe place at home is not that safe, and shit, everything's a bloody long way away when you can't walk that far. So it was really good for all of us to have that time and to go, right, that this is okay, it has to happen, but we've had a trial, we can give it a go. But by going back into the hospital, you realise this was the next step, but it's going to be another hard, long step again. But it was breaking it down small enough that you could see that you'd made progress, but that it was still going to be hard and not over.
Thanks, Rena. Who else would like to contribute? Yeah.
Can I just say, it's been fantastic listening to everybody, and of course, I've got heroes sitting up there, so it's easy to be here. I'm a particular fan of Robin, and Robin knows that. But what I wanted to say was, it's really interesting for geriatricians. How many geriatricians here? 2 of us are here. By the way, people are turning off outside because it's so crowded. Maybe just keep that in mind. Geriatricians, the stuff that's being talked about, we are very lucky. Geriatricians are very lucky in our organization. We get to practice all this stuff you're talking about. We let families in all the time because they're a great resource. They help us take care of patients who are delirious. They don't know what's going on. We use them all the time. We use trial discharge home all the time and have done so for years. And I think it's nice to see that spreading throughout the hospital. I suppose the old adage, that if things are safe for elderly, young and pregnant women, they're safe for everybody, probably applies. And this is where involving the family, those principles of care, the transition from hospital into home, things that we practice in older age care all the time, probably need to apply to the whole hospital. And I have to congratulate Mary on this. I couldn't do it on email, Mary. That's another thing. I couldn't do it on your blog. Couldn't get back to you. So that system's needing to work out. But it is really heartening to see this happening. Because as probably David and Rod already said, we've got individuals in this hospital very keen to make changes, very keen to see things happening. But I think those individuals need to get involved in changing the system. The system has to move on, I think. So it's lovely to see this from our point of view.
So thank you for that. I know Mary always welcomes feedback, but others.
And it was really quite nice to hear there. You spent 5 days, but I spent 2 weeks. I hope one day I'll be given the opportunity to give my experience. But there's really one important thing I'd like to say. It's all right if we get the family, but they too need some support. I arrived in Middlemore and had to undertake a surgery. I took my children to school and then went into the surgery, and it happened to be a big one. And they came back to see me in the hospital, and 3 of them were crying. I couldn't talk because I just come out. I couldn't tell them what was happening. And up till now, that experience to my daughter has been, really something she's never forgotten. So in a way, we really at some stage, it's not bringing them, we need to support them. If I was able to tell them what has happened to me, because in the first place, I didn't know what has happened to me. That's to begin with, because no one has told me, and there they were crying in front of me. And just, nobody came to say to them, come this way, we tell you what's happening. And, it hasn't been a very good experience. And it was only when I was discharged that I was able to explain it to them. So I'm making a plea. It's all right to get the families. You still have to support them. If somebody has to be able to go there and say, do come along this way, let me tell you. That's really important. There are other things which, I would have liked to say, but that's the important one that, I really want people to take note of.
Thank you so much for that. Who else wanted to get a... Should we wind it up? I can see Mary hovering.
Thank you, Ron. Yes, I'd just like you to join with me and thank the panel. I think it's been a great explanation of what we're working towards. So thank you for all making the time and being so clear. Thank you.